Welcome to the Why Not Today podcast. And this is an exciting episode because exactly 4 years ago, I hit record and recorded my first episode, Terrified. And today, my anniversary is episode. I keep pulling family members in. Eventually, I have them all. I've got my sister Alicia here, Alicia Kane Little. And we're going to talk about the podcast and legacy and our dad and really about connecting. And so, Alicia, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad I finally got you here.
Thank you.
So, the first question I want to ask you is, what is a why not today moment in your life that you had to make a decision and you acted on that decision and your life took a whole different trajectory and how it's changed because of it? And do you remember where you were or what you were doing or any of those things about it? So, welcome. Share with your why not today moment.
So it's interesting you asked me that question. I remember the event. I don't remember where I was or what I was doing, but you do because I was talking to you about it. I received a job offer to go leave the credit union, leave the Chamber of Commerce to work for the credit union. And I was super excited about it. And then I started to think too much about it and got really scared and thought, oh my goodness, I can't do this job. It turned out took the job, and it was a great decision because it was exactly what I do well at. So I've been able to excel in my role here and use my experience through my connections to the Chamber of Commerce to really do what I love to do, which is help people. I remember that, and like you said, you remember where I was because you were talking me off the ledge, trying to convince me to do what you knew I could do, but I wasn't sure.
And that's just so true. Sometimes we need somebody else to believe in us. And it's interesting, of the six of us siblings, we always talk about how we think differently and we have different memories of life. But, and you and I are the closest, well, you're the closest in age to me. And so I'd say we probably had the most similar upbringing as opposed to our youngest sister is 18 years different, and that was a whole different world. But I do remember I was at Lake Gaston at a friend's house and going for a walk, and you called to tell me you got the job offer. And I was so excited for you. And my brain says, go for it. It's a challenge. You don't know how to do it. Go after it and tackle it. And your brain said, oh, no, I don't know what to do. How am I going to do this?
I have to play it safe. Yeah.
You want to be safe. And I was like, oh my, first of all, I knew you'd be amazing. And you were. And I think your biggest hesitation was you had a quote unquote quota, which I think you blew out of the water your first month or two because I knew you'd be successful. And so, yeah, you just got to jump and say, why not today? And that's what this podcast has been about. I counted up the episodes today. It was like 160 something in 4 years worth of episodes. And I started this scared and didn't know what I was doing and didn't know if I'd continue, but I started. And, the whole story, if you haven't been around, maybe your first episode, the Why Not Today came from, I had the idea to start a podcast. No idea what. I remember where I was walking with my friend Bianca, and I'd been on her podcast, and I said, I'm going to do a podcast. She's like, you should. I have no idea what. Fast forward a few months, and somebody posted something on a social media site next door, which I don't ever go on, which I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing when I saw that post. And it was a gentleman that I don't think you even knew him, Alicia. Did you? No, I can't think of his name, but you know his wife now with the corral. But so he posted something. He had to have brain surgery and had to wear an eye patch. And he posted something on social media all about my dad and all the things he did. And then he said, and we both said, why not today? And although, do you ever remember dad saying that phrase per se? No, but he did definitely live by that. Everything was figure outable. And so I told that to my friend, and she's like, well, that's the name of your podcast. You can just start. So I did. And, you got to love family. They're your biggest cheerleader, your best critic. And I remember you have listened to lots of episodes. And at one point you told me that I was getting better, and you gave me suggestions in the beginning, which I appreciated. And I was getting better. So good. So with the podcast, do you have a favorite episode or one you listen to again or anything significant?
I just find them all fascinating because I love your guests you have on. Like, I love to learn about people and learn new ideas. And really good about finding people who can share things that people want to hear about.
Yeah, yay. And I love the guests too. And I've kind of pivoted more with my training and me being the expert of the guest and a lot of them and all that I know. And I know through the years, you've picked up some lessons from me. Probably when we were younger, things you shouldn't have followed, but we won't go into that. But through coaching that I've helped you with your career, with your life. And I remember one job, and I still remember exactly where I was when I gave you this lesson. So I have the memory. Are there any lessons in particular you can think of that I shared with you in building your career?
Right off the bat, I remember where I was at this one. We were down in Hilton Head, and we got stuck there because ironically it snowed. We couldn't get home, and we were working together in a hotel room. And I would answer the phone when it rang, and you looked at me and said, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "Because it rang." And you're like, "Well, you need to have your phone go to voicemail, see who it is and what they need, and then decide when you're going to respond to them and be prepared for that." And that was like a light bulb moment for me because I'm like, "Oh, that makes so much more sense." But yet I'm like, "Oh, someone needs me. I must answer the phone right now." And so that was a really good lesson, which I still try to use.
Yeah. And that's what we do. We're so reactive to things. And I learned that from a boss that he taught me one thing. And if he ever listens to this, like no respect for the man, but he did say to me, because I was doing literally cold call selling, and like you have a list and start calling people, and then they call you back and you had no idea who they were. And he said, you should never, if you're in sales in any business, you should never answer the phone because you want to be able to be proactive and not reactive. And I had the incident the other day. Somebody called me and I couldn't answer my phone. She left me a message, and the answer I would have given her if I would have answered the phone was no. But when I thought about it, then I was like, oh, well, maybe I could do that. And I think, and I actually caught myself with that today. You'll appreciate this, Alicia, that mom often, when we call her with an idea or have an idea, her first reaction is always no.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But she sits with it, it changes. And somebody today gave me some feedback, and I'm like, no, that won't work. I've already got it planned. But when I sat with it, I'm like, oh, maybe it could. So I think that's good lessons. So before we dive a little deeper, which we already have, what does courage mean to you?
I believe it's just moving forward without knowing the answers, kind of having that faith that you just got to do something. So being scared to do things, I think, is freezes you, and then you get stuck. So not sure what I'm doing, if I'm doing it right, but I gotta keep trying and move.
Right. And I think that goes back to Dad also. And the episode I had with Mom on it was with Amanda being born, that, we didn't know what that looked like. Amanda, who had Down syndrome, but Dad's like, we'll figure this out. And I'm sure they did it super scared because there wasn't any kind of protocol at that point. I think things are a little different now. But yeah, doing it scared. It's so true. And we got to do that. So really one of the things I want to talk to you about, because I think you and I come about this so naturally, is connecting. And there was a book I read, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book, and he described connectors as people who have an extraordinary ability to build relationships across many different circles. They're bridges. They link people who might not otherwise meet. They help ideas spread, and they create momentum inside communities. And when I read that, I immediately thought of you, I thought of me, and I thought of Dad. And it's interesting because we have, and it's fun too, that we hang out in the same circles. So, Dad started the Reston, at that time it was called the Reston Board of Commerce. You worked there, pretty much out of college for a little bit. And then fast forward, you went back there. And then left. But I think so we've got such a legacy in the chamber. And I've shared this many times. I think I shared the episode last week, is that Dad didn't start the chamber because he had business in Reston or locally. He started it because he was raising 6 kids in a community. And I didn't realize the connections he had until he had a stroke. And people would literally stop me in a parking lot, like, how's your dad? I'm like, who are you? And how do you know that's my dad? So that was
definitely happens all the time. Being one of 6 kids, people know one of our siblings or family members.
Have you ever gotten pointed the finger in your face and go, are you one of those? I'm like, yes. So when was the first time you realized, I guess, dad's connection ability or how much he made an impact on people?
Well, it's funny because as a young child, I used to be embarrassed by that. I
Oh,
was embarrassed
absolutely.
when you talk to strangers, when he skirted the line to get you on your airplane so you didn't miss it. He was not a rule follower, and I was, and that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And then I remember once coming home from college, having a conversation with him, and something in my brain switched, like, oh wait a minute, this is really kind of cool. He's not, a rule follower. He thinks outside the box. He's more creative. So yeah, I would say probably in college when I started to appreciate who he was and how he worked more than being embarrassed by
Yeah, I can definitely remember the embarrassed and annoying, like doing homework. I remember it'd be late at night and you're just like,
it.
give me the answer. And he would be like, well, let's think about where the answer comes from. I'm like, no, I don't care. Just give me the answer.
I don't think
But
that was unique to dad. I think lots of parents do that. But yes,
yeah,
that,
I think he definitely made people think differently. I had several friends tell me after he passed away that they had more conversations, deeper conversations with dad than their own parents.
yeah.
And there was something about him that made you definitely think outside the box and think, and he made everybody feel important. I still remember like friends would come over to go out or do something, and he'd be picking up leaves and he'd go, here, Tim, pick up this bag of leaves. And he would. And I'm like, what are you doing? That they wanted to help. Remember when we were going to have a party and dad said we had to rebuild the deck before we could have a party. Do you remember that?
That sounds right. Yeah.
It probably cost him a fortune between alcohol and food to feed all these people and building a deck. But the lessons they learned, one of the people there was Beckett, and he still talks about it today,
Yeah.
building the deck.
That's funny.
Yeah, so many different ways he influenced. So any other memories on connections or anything that you saw him exhibit or taught you, or did we
I mean,
just
I just feel like anywhere we went, he knew someone, or if he didn't know them, he was going to get to know them and figure out either how he could help them or they could help him. It was always about that. Um, I remember people would telemarketers would call and he'd answer the phone. Instead of like most of us would be like, no, thank you, and hang up. He would actually have a conversation with them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've taught this before, and I know for sure that they always say more is caught than taught. And I think we learned so much that we didn't realize we were learning.
Yeah.
Obviously, mom has taught us a lot also, but he was definitely more out in the public making a difference. And his funeral was a perfect example of how many people were there. And people that still tell me they were there, and I had no idea. Lots of memories. So, connecting. Let's talk about connecting. And I think that's definitely our superpower. It's kind of
Yeah.
fun that we run in the same circles, and it's like, okay, if they don't know me, they know you. I remember one day I was talking to somebody and shared that my dad had started the chamber, and he's like, oh, does your dad know Alicia Liddle's dad? I'm like, as a matter of fact, they know
They
each other very
do. Very
well.
well acquainted.
So talk about connecting and what that means to you and how you do it and how hard it is and how scary it is. Haha. Not at all.
Well, it's funny because you tell me all the time that I ask questions, and I think that comes from a genuine curiosity about.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely. I
very
always say
curious.
that you can work a cocktail party like nobody's business, and you can pull out every piece of dirt from people and they have no idea
Yeah.
they just shared it with you because you're just great at asking questions. And I will go back to your chamber days when you were getting looking at a new position and they weren't sure they wanted to hire you. And I remember the rest of the staff is like, are you kidding me? Like, I remember one person in particular, like, if you don't hire her, I'm leaving too.
Yeah.
Because you're not loud about it. You're very subtle. And yeah, can just everybody wants to be your best friend until I tell them your stories because I've got the
About
story.
that. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like it's weird. Kind of like my love for making things. Like it comes naturally to me. I meet someone. I mean, my children will tell you that I embarrass them. In the grocery store, like, Mom, don't do it, don't do it. You see someone with a Kentucky sweatshirt on or something, or a baby, and I feel compelled to go.
Well, and if you're watching this in real time, this is March of 2026. But if you're watching it 10 years from now, may not know what we're talking about. We were the other day talking about the Progressive commercial, and we were
Yeah.
calling each other out that you're acting like your parents. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
There you go. Thank you. Anyways, but yeah, I just am always curious about people, finding out what they need and seeing what I can do to help them. And usually, like my process is, I'll have a conversation with someone, and then as they're telling me more and more unfolds about what they're doing or how I can help them, it like comes down the road. Like I'll be like, oh, I should contact this person, or do you know this person? Can you help this person out? And especially with Amanda, being in that world of people with disabilities, I'm always hyper alert to people who have any kind of connection to that kind of world, and seeing where we can all help each other.
And that's called the reticular activating system. Have you ever heard of that? Have I
Yeah.
shared that with you? And that's when you're looking to buy a red car, you see red cars. And I think we all have that, as I say, spidey sense that
Yeah.
When somebody with a disability, we definitely connect with them because of it. But so you're so good at connecting people and helping people. Are there any stories you can remember of somebody looking for somebody else? Because, we kind of collect these people and have them in our back pocket. And then you have that person reach out. Do you know such and such? And you're like, of course I can connect you with such and such. Any examples of that?
As you know, I don't have a really good recall for things in the past, but just last week I was at a Reston Chamber networking event, and two people who I knew very well were there. Asha, who works for Craftsman Auto Repair, and Debbie Alexander, who works for Spark, Specially Adaptive Research. So I'm working with Asha and her company to have a coffee and cars at Northwest Federal Credit Union on our property.
Which,
so of course, my brain starts.
Let's talk about that, because how that pulled all your worlds together. You meet this random person networking that has an auto shop, which, you're more about cars than I am. And you have a husband that loves cars. And
that's how it got started. I am the ambassador for Craftsman Auto through the Reston Chamber. When they join the chamber, one of my jobs is which I love, is to help them, the new chamber members, get involved. So I was having a conversation with them. I looked on their website. I saw that they had a coffee and cars on there. Well, I'm like, oh, my husband loves those, to go to those. So I asked them about it, and they said, oh, well, we used to do it, but we don't anymore because we don't have. Immediately the light bulb went off in my head. Northwest has a huge parking lot right down the street. I'm like, we have the space, so let's put this event together. So yeah, we put the event together. We're including some local vendors. Weird Brothers Coffee is going to do the coffee. Talk to Chick-fil-A about selling breakfast sandwiches. Northwest has a foundation, so coffee and cars registration fees are going to all go to the foundation, and then Spark, Debbie Alexander Spark was showing me that they just had a custom sensory van created for their participants. They just took delivery from it, and she was showing me pictures. I'm like, oh, you got to show this to Asha. This would be great to have our coffee and car. So introduce them. They started talking, and then Asha was telling us that her husband had a sibling that had Down syndrome that died as a young child. So his mother has been very active in the world of adults with disabilities. They have events that they plan and such. So it was a great full circle where we connected about, the coffee and cars event, and then also helping people with special needs. So I think we have a meeting scheduled either next week or the week after for them all to get together. Those are the kind of things I come home and I, say to my husband, like, oh my gosh, we did this and this and this and this, and it all worked out. And he's just like,
yeah, and I love it. And
you're being you.
Yeah, to full circle this even more, Gabriel Homes, which is a group home that you were on the board, I've been on the board, but it's a group home in the area for adults with disability. Our father started that also, and they're doing an event in April, and it's going to be a block party for awareness of all the resources available for people with disabilities and for everybody to come, just for fun. It's free food. And so we need to connect Debbie back to Lynn with Gabriel Homes, because it'd be cool to have the van there.
Yeah, that would be super fun.
Love all when these connections all work. So if somebody's listening, I always try to give people hope and permission. If somebody's listening and they're like, okay, you guys do this naturally. And yes, it is a superpower. and it does come easy. But what advice would you give to the person that's just starting a business or needs to network and has never networked in their life, and like, how do they do it, and how do they feel confident? How do they grow to the confidence where we are?
I would say practice. Practice on your friends first.
And what are you practicing?
Practice speaking, telling your story. I mean, I think people are really good about talking about who they are, what they do. I find it very useful when I'm meeting someone for the first time to ask them questions about what they do, and then they start the conversation that way. So for people who are not sure what to do, for them to be able to practice their story, because inevitably you'll run into a Leslie or Alicia who will ask them their story. And the more you do it, the more you feel comfortable. I feel also, people who have their own businesses, usually they start the business because they're very knowledgeable about what they do, or they have a passion for what they do. I think those are the easy things to share. I mean, you talk about sales. Like when I worked for the chamber, it wasn't my job to bring in new members, but it came naturally to me because I believed in what the chamber does. And I would talk to people all the time. I still do, even though I'm not a member, about joining the chamber, the benefits of it. But it was because I believed in them. I knew what to say, and it made you feel more comfortable. So I think, like I said, knowing what you're doing and knowing what you have to say, and then also practicing talking to people. There's lots of different avenues for networking in small groups. I mean, the chambers have things, Million Cups has things. Well, BNI is a little bit bigger, but there's lots of networking groups that you could join.
There's one called the Why Not Today Connects Luncheon too.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, going to those things and just being around other people. The other thing too, I think COVID taught me, and I think most people, is that it's okay to make a mistake. I mean, how many of us, when we first had to do a Zoom call during COVID, had your dog barking in the back, or, oh, my audio is not working, oh, my camera's not working, or, something went wrong. I think it made us all realize we're all just people, and we are not perfect. And, putting on that facade of, oh, everything has to be perfect, I think kind of went out the window during COVID.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. COVID, you had to be, feel like you look perfect and all the things because people were looking at you. I'm like, you know what? When you're standing in front of somebody, they're looking at you, and you don't know, like in Zoom, if your hair is going sideways. In person, you don't know. And if they're not telling you. So I know you're a master at asking questions. And we were at the dinner table the other night, and you were telling me a story about somebody you'd met because of one question you always ask. What's a question you ask often?
What trips do you have planned?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to ask people. I know another training I'd been to talked about asking people where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
People always want to talk about where they're from. And that's something Dad was great at. He knew every nurse, doctor, every place, what country they were from, and everything about them. And people still ask me, going to Kaiser, oh, how I loved your dad. And I'm like, oh, the heck.
Yeah, I do try to shy away from now asking people, what do you do? Because I feel like that is something that people aren't who their job is. But
right.
I feel like
I totally
a
agree.
lot of times that's an important part of the conversation.
I always like to ask, where are you from? Are you from this area? Is a good question. Somebody asked me at a holiday party what I like to do for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to talk about the podcast, and our friend Robin stopped me, or he stopped me, and she goes, but she does do that for fun. But the reason he asked that question is he almost died, and his family had to call, and he was out of the country or somewhere, and thinking that was their last call, and he survived. He's like, we got to have fun in life. So that's the question he asks. So, pick that special question. Don't get too deep. I love everybody in social media these days. I get private messages. What's hard for you in your business? Or what? I'm like, I don't need to, I don't know who you are. Why am I giving you that answer? So connecting is just talking to people. And then I did a training one time. Somebody shared with me, it was TTP and then TTMP. Talk to people and talk to more people. And start to collect people and friends and connections, and you just never know where that's going to go.
Well, I love the fact that in my job, I am working, but I'm also with people I connect with and I'm friends with. So oftentimes, again, I like to use Dave as my example. I come home and tell him about my day, and I'll be like, my friend, I mean, my coworker, I mean, my friend, I mean, it's the same person sometimes.
I used to get Brad used to always my friend Brad used to always say, you always say start with your friend. Are they all your friends? I'm like, yeah, they are. I'm like, you don't know who they are, so they're my friend.
It's pretty cool that you get to either work in the same company with people you love to be with, or you get to work, helping people that then become your friends and you see them all the time, and it makes you happy.
Right. Well, I was talking to one of my old bosses the other day, Debbie, and talking about corporate America. And I got a bad review at work one day because I was told I had too many social calls, phone calls, because the president would walk by my office and I'm having a conversation. Well, it was kind of a joke that a lot of our vendors and people we work with, they called FOK, friend of Cain, that people I brought in. And so, network isn't always transactional. I think that's the mistake a lot of people make in thinking about networking. It's like, I don't meet Alicia thinking that I'm going to put money in Alicia's credit union. And Alicia doesn't meet me think, it's not transactional. And
when I was working in the chamber, that's something we would tell everyone when they joined. Like, this is, if you think you're joining the chamber, so immediately people are going to give you business, you'd be lucky if they do, but that's not the way it works. You're really building
you got to
relationships.
build those relationships, build that know, like, and trust, and you don't have no idea where that business is going to come. I had somebody that I randomly met on Smith Mountain Lake one day on a boat, and 13 years later sent me a message ordering products from me. So you just never know. So I think just having your eyes open, and you just never know who those are connections. And as we said, reticular activating system. You're going to meet some random stranger today asking for something, and tomorrow you're going to see that person. You're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. So go ahead.
There you go.
I was going to say, as we kind of wrap up here, anything else that wisdom from what you've learned on the podcast, or you're my biggest critic, as I said, any things that you think I should improve, or ways you've seen me improve and grow in it's hard to believe it's 4 years, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, nothing comes to mind as far as suggestions. Like I said, I love your guests. I love listening to them. I love how you're very natural about speaking. Yeah.
Came back naturally. I think
I feel like if I were to give parting advice to somebody, always think about where the other person is coming from. Maybe someone cuts you off as you're driving, or, says something that's not nice. When I was raising my kids, I would always say to them, well, if that person, is not nice to you, it's probably from something that happened in their life that they're compensating for. So, always kind of give people the benefit of the doubt and try to see the best in people. Sometimes to my fault, I do that too much. I might, in a way, be a little gullible when people, tell me this fabulous thing that they can do. I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. Maybe they're elaborating a little bit too much. But
I'd rather be that.
That's a good way of looking at things.
I was going to say, I'd rather be that way than skeptical. Yep. So Why Not Today is all about taking action and doing what you're passionate about, and doing things when you might not be ready. And what'd you say? Courage is doing things scared.
Yeah, just not knowing what's out there, but you got to keep trying.
Right. So I'm going to throw you under the bus, my little sister.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you know where this is going. So you are passionate about people and connections, but there's something else that your brain thinks totally different than my brain. And what would that be, little sister? Decorating and creating things. Like during COVID, you made blanket ladders, you made coffee tables. Like when your grandson came and he wanted a table, you got a table, you painted it with spiders because he loves spiders. And my brain does not think that way, but yours does.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this publicly and out loud.
Yeah.
And ask you the question, why not today start your LLC?
I'll start my LLC. Yeah.
What's the name of it? Do you know the name? If you knew the name, what would it be?
Put me on the spot. How am I supposed to come up with it right away?
If you knew the name, what would it be?
I don't know. I'll have to think on it. But
so
one of the things that I have to say that's different about you and I You are very optimistic and a risk taker. I am very not. So I am very cautious about things. And even though it doesn't mean that I won't take risk, but when I do them, they're very calculated and I think about, both sides of things
Well,
before I do it. So,
we just went full circle from your why not today moment of starting your job full of fear. You
yeah.
know, starting an LLC, yes, it costs maybe less than $100, but
Yeah,
it can
no, I
change.
can do that. Yep.
So yeah, let's start that. And that's really what Why Not Today has evolved into, is supporting people starting businesses, starting LLCs. I've literally sat with 3 different people for coffee in the morning. By the afternoon, they said they started an LLC. So as part of Why Not Today, I do have a coaching program called Why Not Today Inner Circle. And it exactly takes people step by step. Like I talked to somebody one day and she hadn't started her LLC yet, but she already had a Yelp account. And sometimes we do all those other things to avoid telling somebody we're in business. So the inner circle comes beside people to support them and give them tools and mentorship, and we all help each other. So if you're listening to this in real time, I'm kicking off an anniversary special for the inner circle. If you want more information, let me know. But thank you, Alicia, for being my guest.
Welcome. It only took 4 years for you to get me on.
I know it took a while. I still got 2 more siblings, 3 that I haven't done, but we'll get to them. So, well, thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you everybody for joining us for the Why Not Today podcast and trusting me with your time. Our time is valuable, and if you've listened once or 20 times, I really appreciate it. And it's hard to believe we're starting our 5th year. So I always say, close with, whether you start launching something new or navigating a pivot, I hope you're leaving today's episode the clear next step and a reminder that you're not alone. So if you want more information about Why Not Today, it's whynottoday.movement.com. And this podcast is your bridge from inspiration to action. And I'm here to walk with you every step of the way. So share this with a friend that you're thinking about. They have that passion, or like it, give us a review. And thanks for following us. And Why Not Today? Thanks, Alicia.